obstacles and how can they be overcome if church planters, pastors, and reformers are to establish healthy multi-ethnic churches? Mapping the movement. Have you ever found yourself in an unfamiliar environment? One in which you needed a map just to figure out exactly where you were or where next you needed to go. In such times, it takes a special kind of map to point us in the right direction. You know the kind, those large displays centrally located at airports and malls, even some churches, marked with an X alongside three very helpful words. You are here. Clear understanding of where we are and where we've come from provides the context to discern the way forward. Before moving on, then, let me provide such a map, a context for understanding the multi-ethnic church movement, where it is, where it comes from, and where I believe the future lies. The Forerunner Stage. In their book, United by Faith, authors Curtis Paul DeYoung, Michael O. Emerson, George Yancey, and Karen Chai Kim present a concise history of the emergence of multiracial congregations in the United States in the second half of the 20th century. The Forerunner Stage. Despite the wonderful leadership of the individuals and churches they cite, church growth and development in those years was primarily governed by something called the homogeneous unit principle. In short, this principle suggests that churches grow fastest when they're homogeneous, made up of people from the same ethnic, economic, and educational background. For the most part, the principle is true and can be used quite effectively to build a large church. In other words, target a specific group of people and appeal to their collective wants and wishes, and your church will grow. The problem with the homogeneous unit principle is that, despite the good intentions of those interested in rapidly reaching the world with the gospel, and consequently growing churches quickly, the principle has had the unintended effect of justifying the segregation of local congregations along ethnic and economic lines. The fact is, it has led us even farther away from principles and practices that defined New Testament churches, such as existed at Antioch and Ephesus. Churches in which the love of God for all people was clearly on display. Churches in which diverse believers learned to walk, work, and worship together as one so the world would know God's love and believe. See John 17:20-23 following, Acts 11:19-26, and Acts 13:1 following, and Ephesians 2:11-3:6. Toward the end of the Forerunner Stage, a new movement called Promise Keepers burst onto the evangelical scene. Among other things, this inspirational effort had the effect of presenting the ideals of racial reconciliation in a more palatable way to the conservative evangelical masses. At weekend events, black and white men stood side by side with Latinos and Asians, filling entire stadiums to sing, study, pray, and even weep together, united by a common faith in their love for Jesus Christ. Yet despite the good feelings that were generated and the well-intentioned efforts of organizers, those who attended would quickly return to the segregated status quo of the congregations from which they came. And the question still remained: why is such a wonderful expression of unity and diversity not more commonly found within our own local churches and weekly gatherings? At the start of the 21st century, a truly groundbreaking work titled Divided by Faith was published. In my mind, this marked the end of the Forerunner Stage and ushered in what I call the pioneer stage of the multi-ethnic church movement. Let me tell you why. For more than 100 years, it has been widely said that 11 o'clock on Sunday morning is the most segregated hour of the week. However, until Divided by Faith was published, the observation remained largely unaddressed. In their book, sociologists Michael O. Emerson and Christian Smith provided statistical data detailing the systemic segregation of the local church throughout the United States. Studying both Catholic and Protestant churches throughout the country at the turn of the century, they showed that 92.5% of churches could be classified as monoracial. This term, they said, describes a church in which 80% or more of the individuals who attend are of the same ethnicity or race. The remaining churches, 7.5%, they described as multiracial.